FOBtv, the future of business. I'm your host, Kevin Benedict. I'm a futurist here at TCS, and I am thrilled to be able to welcome our guest today. He's part of our team. He's Bill Quinn. He's a futurist in our group, and he's also an athlete. Bill, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Kevin, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So you and I speak regularly around the world on topics like digital twin. Here we are today. You're getting ready for a big race that I'm going to ask you to tell us about, and the role digital twins is playing in that race for you. So first of all, what race are you getting ready for, Bill?
Great. I am ramping up for the TCS New York City Marathon coming up on Sunday. We're recording this on Thursday, and it's coming up on Sunday, November 5th. So right around the corner.
Oh, wow. So again, we talk about digital twins all the time, but for those that aren't familiar with it, Bill, what's digital twin mean to you?
Yeah, so the way I like to think about digital twins is it's a physical representation of a person, place, or thing. So you could imagine that it's a digital twin of a building or a farm or a city or a car, or in this case, a human being. And so we can create digital twins of these physical person, places, or things, and then collect lots of data about that and sort of have a conversation with that data. And learn things and get predictive with that data, so we can understand, if I do this, what will be the impact, or what's going on right now, or what's the trajectory of my farm, for example. Do I need more water here, more herbicides there? So it allows us to really better understand the things that we're monitoring, and to really optimize. And that's the important thing, is to really optimize those things, and make better decisions in the future about how to manage those things.
So Bill, help us imagine this. So you run and you're preparing for this big race, and you're going to create a digital model of yourself, and then you're going to monitor your performance from a variety of different perspectives. Walk us through that.
Yeah, so this whole idea was hatched. I was actually on a mountain bike ride here outside of Denver, Colorado, where I live, and as you said, we've been doing a lot of work around digital twins, and TCS is actually doing some really cool work around digital twins, creating a digital heart of a woman named Des Linden. She's an Olympic champion, Boston Marathon winner, just an amazing, amazing athlete, and so we're creating a digital heart, of her heart, to understand that performance. And, in the physical, when we think about digital twins of humans, it's by and large been the domain of those very elite athletes who have the sort of sponsorship resources and so on, to do that, or, to individuals who, are very focused on kind of longevity and wellness. And I got to thinking about it and kind of where we are in the technology arc of digital twins. And I thought, could I create, could sort of the average runner, which I very much am. I'm not anywhere close to an elite anything as it relates to athletics. Could an average runner create a digital twin, or cobble together, more specifically, a digital twin of themselves? And that was kind of the question that I asked myself as I was slogging up this hill on my mountain bike, and just got really interested in the idea. And so I started researching it. And what I learned was that, you can, to a degree. So I have, an Apple Watch where I can monitor, all sorts of different things, but most specifically, I can monitor my training and my training programs. That then feeds into an app that allows me to kind of monitor from one run to the next, where was my heart rate, what was my pace, all that sort of thing, and do a comparison of that information. I have another device that I'm wearing that monitors my kind of rest and recovery. So not just how much did I sleep, but how much rest am I getting, and how prepared am I the next day for a big effort, or do I need to sort of slow down that day? I've been wearing a glucose monitor to understand how my diet impacts my performance, and really try and understand kind of what goes into my body. How does that sort of fuel my performance going forward? And so I started putting all of these pieces together and really just playing with them. You know, digital twins, as you know, are fairly nascent in this human world right now, particularly for, you know, just kind of the everyman. But I just started playing with it and learning about, you know, what worked and what didn't, and you know, tried to create the best representation of a digital twin that I could.
So, Bill, have you counted how many sensors that you are plugged into?
Well, if you count, so I've got these three. There are hundreds of data points that they're all collecting. You know, it's not you know, it's your heart rate variable. So you know what's the highs and lows of your heart rate at, you know, when you're at rest. Not just, you know, your existing heart rate, and you know, how does diet spike your glucose. I mean, it's just hundreds of pieces of data, and that really kind of highlights one of the challenges with this, right? Which is we're not yet at a point where you can easily make sense of all of this data. You know, you kind of have to do some research and figure out, you know, does this matter? And you know, first of all, what is this data? What is it telling me? And to what degree does it matter for what I'm focused on? And so that's kind of one of the challenges and limitations right now, is that, you know, they are pretty discrete pieces of data, and you as the human have to make sense of a lot of that. Certainly looking forward, I think that, you know, AI, obviously, it's just exploded on the scene in the last 12 months or so. I think we're going to see a lot more intelligence around this data, where, you know, an AI will make sense of it all for you and kind of give you the summary and say, you know, here's what I'm seeing and here's what I think you should do. Because that's really where you want to get to, right? You don't want to have an MD in order to use all of this and really make good use of it. You want it to be very simple, very actionable, and very understandable.
Yeah, in my mind, I just imagine this app that just keeps me in the lane, right? So if my goal is to be prepared at this date for this kind of athletic endeavor, just keep me in the lane so that I'm eating the right things, sleeping the right things, and then show when I'm getting out of the lane. That's all I need to know. Yeah, you can
That's exactly right.
yeah, churn through all that data, just keep me in the lane. So when I get there, I'm in the right place.
That's exactly right. And the way I've sort of talked about it recently is, I wouldn't say this is so much a digital twin today. It's digital twins, right? Because it's a lot of discrete data that sort of sits in silos. You're not really getting this holistic view across all of these devices. And so, to your point, I really think that's, you know, where the technology should be going and ultimately will go. Is it's almost the engine warning light, right? If you don't hear from me, you're doing okay. But if I tell you something, then you know, you need to course correct.
So talk to me about your learning. So you've had to research all this, you're using all these sensors. You must have studied, you know, all the plans on how to prepare for these races. So if you could boil it down, what are some of the key things you've learned in this process?
Yeah. So one of the first things that I learned is that it's just mind blowing how great this technology is even today. You know, I ran my first 10K, and I think it was 1982, which will tell you how old I am. But it was just, you know, what I wore back then when I was training for that was a little pedometer that you clipped onto your belt, and it would sort of jiggle around and, you know, estimate how far you ran. And so, you know, you fast forward really not that many years, and it's pretty mind blowing how far this technology has come. So the first thing is it's really exciting. But again, I think that the other thing that I've learned is that we have a long ways to go. There's a lot of really exciting stuff that I think is just right in front of us, in terms of integrating all of this data onto some sort of a common platform and having intelligence, you know, to sort of make sense of that. The other thing that I've learned is that you really do, it's sort of the old business adage, right? You can't improve what you don't measure. And it's really been true for me, you know, with all of this training data. I find that, you know, as I've added on these devices, I've been focused about more things beyond just how far did I run today, right? And how did I feel? I'm much more mindful about, you know, what heart rate zone am I in while I'm training, so that I can get myself to optimal fitness 6 weeks from now or 8 weeks from now or whatever. So, I'm much more mindful about, the food that I put in my body and its impact on my performance, 2, 3, 4 days down the road. I really think that it's incredibly valuable to leverage this data and to use it to inform, all of your different training strategies. That said, I think you also need to recognize that it's not a panacea, right? There are some days that for whatever reason, I'm just feeling tired. And even though my rest and recovery app says you're ready to go, I just feel tired. And so I think there's a little bit of a balance right now, at least, between sort of blindly following the data and sort of listening to your body and sort of doing what your body tells you. There's kind of a yin and yang to that. Sometimes you need to just kick yourself in the butt and get out the door and run anyway when you're not feeling it or when it's cold outside or whatever. So there is an aspect of that, but I also think that sometimes you're just feeling tired for whatever set of reasons, and you need to listen to that as well.
Now, both you and I study the future for a living. That's what we do. Our heads are down into the research. As I'm listening to you, I'm thinking to myself, do we need to associate all of our health records with these physical fitness apps? So if there happens to be a three-dimensional scan of our heart, why isn't that part of this process? And, maybe we're on a treadmill and we have that data that can be applied to this. So we have a baseline in which to evaluate, our fat, our diet, our bodies. So where do you see this all coming together in the next 10, 15 years, Bill?
Yeah, well, a couple of things. One is I think you're exactly right. I think when we sort of take this out of just the training for a marathon paradigm and put it into the broader health and wellness ecosystem and sort of that paradigm, I think you're going to see huge strides going forward in terms of being very much more proactive in our health and wellness. Right now, I only go to the doctor when I'm sick or something's wrong, and I call them and I say something's wrong. But imagine a time where you get a call from your doctor's office and say, that says, hey, we've scheduled an appointment for you for next Tuesday because we're seeing some anomaly in your data that we want to look further into. Right. I think that's where we're going. Now, of course, there's lots of hurdles you talk a lot about. We don't just look at, science and technology, but we have to think about societal factors, geopolitical factors, et cetera. There's a lot of societal regulations and sort of hurdles that we're going to need to get over around data privacy and that sort of thing to get there. But I do think that's where we start to make really big strides in terms of overall health and wellness, is being much more proactive about where our bodies are headed rather than waiting until something goes wrong and then we go to the doctor or go to the hospital to manage that. The other thing that I think will happen is, in much the same way I sort of talked about, I started with this crummy little pedometer for my first 10K, and now I've got all these really cool wearables. I think in 5, 10, 20 years, I'm going to look at all these wearables and laugh at how sort of basic they were, right? Because a lot of these sensors are going to start going into our body, not just be on our body. And the level of details that we're going to be able to get, and the amount of information that we're going to be able to gather from, nanobots swimming around in our bloodstream and going through our organs and so on, is just going to be mind blowing. Being able to detect heart disease and cancer and those kinds of things very, very early on, where it just becomes a blip in your overall, sort of health lifespan, rather than, waiting until it's way down the road and then it's this big catastrophic thing. So that's really where I see it going. And I think where we're going to see really massive strides in terms of improving health and wellness and longevity down the road.
In that example you gave earlier, Bill, about your doctor calls you because they saw an anomaly because the sensors were reporting some things and the data analytics highlighted them or something, that brings to mind this notion of whether or not the experts are in the loop or on the loop. In the loop, meaning humans have to read those and then start a process and have somebody call you and all that. Or on the loop, is where you may have an automated system that found that and called you and got you scheduled and brought you in, and then told the doctor who they were going to see. So the doctor wasn't in the loop, but they're on the loop overseeing that whole system to make sure that system is working in the best interest of you as the patient as well. So all these little intricacies will all work together to give us that future that's going to make our lives better. Bill, I want to thank you so much for joining us today, and good luck on the race.
Thanks, Kevin. Appreciate the time. I'm really looking forward to it.